What's your perspective on how India is looked upon from enterprises from across the globe, from a cost center to an innovation hub?
Focus was more on how do I do more with less. But in the later part of 2000s and after 2010, 2015 or so, the focus started shifting to value creation and innovation.
The GCC state going to shape up 2030.
The number of interconnection and collaboration opportunities we will have, for people to share stories. And I think something that the Leadership Federation is doing is a great, concept.
You believe in driving culture is by letting people experiment, not be fearful of failures, and strive for incremental improvements.
Google came out with a research that said that the biggest predictor of an organization's success is your environment psychologically safe?
How do you do that to make sure that the GCC that we set up here is not just something that's going to help them tactically,
Right.
but with headquarter alignment and blessing from the global headquarters, it continues to strive here in India.
Priorities come from the wrong side of the organization, you end up being a cost center. Because you're really not seeing value beyond that. Foremost thing is in my opinion, is who are you reporting to?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the Sunny Shah Show. Today we are going to talk about scaling of global capability centers. India is well known for our global capability centers. As we emerge and attract and have a lion's share of GCCs setting up in this part of the world. But from cost center to becoming innovation centers and R&D centers and hopefully product centers, this is a journey that India is poised to take. And to speak to me on this topic, we have Mr. Srinivas Sampath, a veteran who has built and scaled GCCs for over 25 years. Somebody who's been on the other side of the table, who knows how to successfully build GCCs and evolve them into R&D innovation hubs here in India. Mr. Srinivas, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sunny. Thanks for having me over.
The pleasure is all mine.
Likewise.
So Srini, your journey has been phenomenal. 25 years in the same industry, playing significant role in anchoring some of the most strategic teams right here in India for the GCCs that you worked for. As you reflect back upon this journey, what are your key takeaways? What are those lessons that you learned through the journey? And any key moments coming out of those 25 years of your investment in this industry that you want to reflect upon?
Sure. Thanks, Sunny. So first off, thanks for having me here. It's great to be on this show and share my experiences. When you say it, it is 25 years. In fact, I'm thinking it's even close to 30 years now,
Right.
Having been in the industry. And over the course of those 3 decades, a lot has changed with respect to how we envisage GCCs, how we look at GCCs. But back then, when I began my career back in 97, I was fortunate enough to join a GCC back then. While the terminology is fairly new, some of these companies have been in existence for such a long time that they have been doing very similar work. Just that, the terminology was either an offshore center or a captive and whatnot. But at that time, we were actually a GCC where we were having end-to-end ownership of the product. We were having end-to-end accountability of what needs to be done. And we had to learn, domains that, were pretty alien to us. So I started my career in the higher education industry, developing software for higher education universities worldwide, predominantly the US market. And my career grew from there. And right from day one, I was thrown into having a lot of accountability, a lot of ownership. So that sort of, I would say, sparked the interest in me to kind of go down this particular path. And over the course of last 3 decades, I've worked across different domains, different roles. And I think I've been fortunate enough to get the opportunities to work on different roles. I think the management had the trust and they wanted to take that leap of faith. So I've played various roles. I've played engineering head roles. I've played sales roles. I've played professional services roles. And I've played a country head role. And my recent stint is where I'm again back to being a site leader and a vice president of R&D. So it's been a huge journey across various ups and downs. I wouldn't call one key moment, but rather I think I've learned across the years, because leadership for me is a journey. It's not a moment in time. It's not a point in time. So every twist and turn that you take is a page in your leadership journal.
Right.
So I've learned a lot over these course of years in terms of how to work with people, how to work with cross cultures, how to build and scale specifically GCCs, and how to do something ground up when you don't have any support system, right? How do you do something ground up? That's also something that has been a significant learning for me in the last 3 decades. So yes, amazing journey. But thanks to all the different people who have given me these opportunities so that I could play those roles. So definitely thankful to all of them.
With that being said, 25, 30 years in the same industry, you would have started on the journey at a very nascent stage, whereas in India was originally looked as a global capability center or an outsourcing center from a cost arbitrage standpoint. From that till now, while you are leading an R&D unit of a leading multinational company, what do you think has shaped this journey? What's your perspective on how India is looked upon
Right.
from enterprises from across the globe, from a cost center to an innovation hub? Can you
Right.
tell us more about it, please?
Sure. So if you look at it, the initial part of the journey, when we look at the early 90s, early 2000s, it was all around execution and efficiency. Every single captive unit that was set up at that point of time, the focus was how do you reduce cost? How do you improve something that is already there? And maybe add incremental value along the journey.
Sure.
Right? But it was never the focus. The focus was more on how do I do more with less. But in the later part of 2000s and after 2010, 2015 or so, the focus started shifting to value creation and innovation.
Okay.
Right? And when we look at what made that shift, because that's a big shift from something that's focusing on execution to something that's focused on innovation, where you're expected to disrupt something. If I look at what could have been those 3 or 4 factors that made that shift, the first is, I think, the narrative of a GCC changed. No longer are people looking at it as, oh, I need to come to India to reduce cost. I think that's a given. No longer are people using that as a primary focus, but they're coming here with the intention that I want to disrupt my industry. I want to build something new. I want to change my thinking. So can this region help me out? Can the people in this region help me out? So one, that narrative is changing.
Sure.
Second, I believe our talent has significantly changed over the last 3 decades. I think today we are, leading in some of the niche technologies like AI, cloud, data science, and whatnot, right? To what we were 3 decades ago, where the focus was more on back-end work, BPO type of operations. But from then on, we have significantly moved. So the talent shift is another reason why companies are more comfortable taking that move from an execution to a value creation. The third is what I call as capability building, right? Where I think a lot of organizations have started to realize that if they have to play the value and innovation game, you have to upskill, right? And you have to do it proactively. Nobody's going to tell you to do it. Nobody's asking you to innovate. So it's in your DNA that you want to make that change. So I think the reason that many companies are now starting to focus a lot on upskilling is you want to win in that value creation game. And finally, I think the trust level of companies in India has increased.
Yes.
From a time where companies used to ask, can India do this? We are now in a situation where companies are saying, can you lead this for me? I think that is a big shift from something that's, can you do it to
How can you do it?
Will you do it? How can you do it?
Yeah.
And how quickly can you do it? Do you have the right, people, skills, and capabilities in you? So the trust factor, I think, has significantly changed. So I think these 4 factors have contributed over the last, I should say, 2.5 to 3 decades to systematically shift the mindset of, how companies approach GCC and how they even look at India as a region.
Quite interesting. Now everybody's talking about the next 3 to 5 years of an accelerated journey, especially in the GCC space. If data is to be believed, more than 600 companies will enter India to set up their operations in some form or the other.
Right.
Being a veteran who's been there, done that in this industry, what's your perspective? How is the GCC state going to shape up to 2020, 2030?
Yeah. Personally, I think we are in a very exciting, point in time, right? Where I think on a weekly basis, you see 2 to 3 GCCs being set up, in some part of the country or the other, with a very clear mandate
Yep.
that I want to improve something, I want to expand, I want to build new stuff. So I think we are in a very, very interesting phase where we are expecting to see, at least in the next 3 to 5 years, our overall GCC count almost reaching up to 2,500 plus, right? With the projected revenue of more than 200 billion being contributed back. I think as a country and as an individual, I think there's a lot of responsibility for us, right? And somebody is trusting us to do it. So we are in a very, very interesting moment in time, and I think it will come out to play. There is nothing that is going to stop it. I think every region, wants to come to India.
Yeah.
Of late, we are seeing a lot of mid-sized companies wanting to come to India. These are companies that are less than $1 billion in revenue, and they have a very clear mandate. They are not looking at large headcounts. They are not looking at churning the ocean, but they want to be forefront in the digitization
Sure.
scenario that we are in. The second thing that I'm also observing is a lot of private equity firms are pushing their portfolio companies to come to India, because for them, cost optimization is a big thing.
Mhm.
And they want to do it fast because they are on an accelerated time scale to raise their value, right? So that, I think, is a very big shift where you see a lot of these private equity firms wanting to come. So net, I think we will reach the count. Probably we may even exceed the count in terms of the number of GCCs. So I'm definitely excited to see what is going to come over the next 3 to 5 years, and more importantly, the nature of work.
Right.
I think we are going to be at the forefront of research and development. We are going to be at the forefront of disrupting maybe even some industries. So there is a lot of opportunity for people. And personally, for me, I'm excited about two things. One is, how is AI going to play its role?
Sure.
Almost every day there is an improvement. Almost every day there is a new innovation in AI, and almost every day something interesting happens in that field. So I'm closely watching that space to see how is AI going to help in this journey. It's not always about people.
Yeah.
It's almost always about how do you do things better, how do you do things faster. And if you really want to innovate, I think AI can be a great partner in that space. So I'm really interested to see how AI, really accelerates this journey. And the second is, I think I'm really excited about the number of interconnection and collaboration opportunities we will have, for people to share stories. And I think something that the Leadership Federation is doing is a great, concept where you're trying to bring in a lot of GCC leaders with a wide array of experience.
Right.
So when these people come together, I think the collective mindshare will be probably a few thousand years, right? And how do these people share? And how do these people want to collaborate and help each other? More than sharing stories, it's how can I help another GCC? I think that's very exciting. And yes, I think the next 5 years, I'm really looking forward to it. I think plenty of opportunities for people. A lot of challenges will be there too.
Yeah.
And I think it's how we ride that road.
Interesting. Moving our needle to talent and people. In the industry, if your peers and people who worked with you were to define you, one thing that comes out is you are a people person. You are a people leader. As we shape up the global capability centers as innovation hubs, how do you balance this to make sure that the workforce of the future continues to be trained and mentored in the right direction, so that you are able to produce the leaders to build and scale this kind of a growth that India is foreseeing over the next 5 years?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question, because I think ultimately anything that a GCC does boils down to its people.
Yep.
As much as your strategies can exist on paper, your charter can exist on paper, without the right people, nothing happens. So I'm a firm believer that if you have the right people, everything else falls into place. So when I look at, okay, how do I, build a GCC that can, shape the future of the organization that it's associated with, it starts with hiring the right people.
Right.
And once you have that particular formula in place, then a few things have to kind of happen one after the other. The first one is, how do you align what that talent is thinking to what the organization wants, right? And I, as an individual, I don't like to paint a picture that doesn't exist, right? I'd like to be very practical. Every GCC goes through a journey.
Yeah.
So rather than looking at 5-6 years down the line and telling that something might happen, you might as well be practical about what's going to happen today. So that way, I think people are prepared. People know what to expect. So the first thing is getting that alignment correct. Now, once you have that alignment in place, I think a lot of other things naturally start happening, because you start attracting the right people after that.
Right.
Because you're not saying something that's not going to happen. Now, once you have the set of people that you have on board, I think as a GCC leader, one must relentlessly work with HR to define how do people grow in the system. Right? It's very easy to say career path is easy, it's a lattice, you can move left, you can move right, but is it defined? Is it structured? Have you put in the right amount of thoughts to say, how does one role differ from the other? Right? Too many times I've seen a lot of job descriptions across the different levels pretty much have one of few sentences that are different. So end of the day, you're growing, but you're doing the same thing. So my ask to my people always is let's define it in such a way that you see a measurable improvement.
Right.
And when people see a measurable improvement, you naturally get stickiness. People want to see what's next. So that's the second thing that I think from a talent perspective or from a people perspective, I really focus on. The third is, I think you need to make your work visible beyond the four walls of your GCC. Because when an MNC comes and tries to set up a GCC and they're helping you and they're asking you to build the center, they're talking at a very high level. They don't know what capabilities there on the floor that is getting this done. So making the work of people visible is extremely important as a leader, to tell people that there is so much that's happening and there is so much that is yet to be tapped. So building that visibility, I think, is super critical. And I would say the last is making sure that you never ever create an us versus them sort of a culture, right? I mean, that is something that I continuously reiterate to people, that we are here because of an MNC wanting to come here. So it's never us versus them, right? So let's try to create an inclusive environment.
Yeah.
Let's try to co-create, right? There will be a point where, we will diverge. More focus will come to India, but let's prove it rather than assume that it's going to happen. So those are the four things that I continuously keep reiterating across the different companies that I worked with, different people that I worked with, and it's worked. I think it's given me the right amount of success, and it's given me the right amount of growth that I want to see in each GCC.
I have an add-on question from a talent perspective, right?
Sure.
If you look at the three top challenges from a talent perspective that most GCCs or most GCC leaders are facing, one is retention of talent.
Correct.
The other one is capability building.
Right.
And then the third and the obvious one is leadership pipeline.
Right.
How do you address those challenges?
Yeah. These are, I think, they've been there for the last 3 decades.
Correct.
I don't think this has changed, nor will it change, right? Because end of the day, the talent pool is finite.
Right.
The different areas that you need to focus on is something that's visible to everybody. Everybody wants to have a share of the pie, and everyone wants to grow, right? So these challenges have never changed over the last 3 decades. But how people approach it and what opportunities are there in front of you has changed.
Yeah.
So I'll just go through each one of them, like you said. So one is, let's talk about retention. Now, I like to see retention as a very simple formula, right? It's a function of the work that you do, the recognition that you get for that work, how you grow in that particular role that you are in, and last, are you being paid fair? Now, if any of these has an imbalance, chances are I'm unhappy.
True.
Right? And I want to look at the next, green field that offers me that. So my focus on addressing retention is, how do I control each of these levers? Right? What do I dial up? What do I dial down? What do I not really care much about because it's not in my control? And always I'd like to dial up something that's in my control. So nature of work, definitely in my control, because we can push for what needs to be done, because we have hired the right people.
Yeah.
So we know what everybody is capable of, so you can keep pushing for doing the right piece of work. Now, once you get that part of the equation sorted out, the second is obviously people will want to be recognized for the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
So how do you make that recognition impactful? Right? Are you just saying thank you, or are you saying that, by you doing this, you have improved the top line of the company by 3%, 4%, or you've reduced the turnaround time by 20%? So I think always equating their work back to a measurable impact carries a lot of weight. So that takes care of the recognition part. The third one is how do I grow? And that goes back to what we were discussing in the earlier question, saying how do I relentlessly work in building a career path that shows people measurable growth, right? And it needs to be purely data driven. I hate career growths that are based on emotion, right? That I've been here 20 years, I need to grow. Sorry, it doesn't happen that way, right? You have to show capability, you have to show outcomes, and you have to show results. So when that happens, growth is guaranteed.
Makes sense.
So that takes care of the third part. Now, fair pay is always not in your control, right? There are too many data points out there. There are too many percentages out there. And your company might itself have a budget constraint. So I don't focus too much on the fair pay part. We do what is best within the industry. We do what is possible. But if you tackle the other three really well, actually people don't worry too much about compensation. Compensation becomes a big point when the other three don't have much focus. They don't have enough work. They're bored. They have a lot of free time. They're not growing. So they look at something else that, they can talk about. And that invariably becomes compensation. So I focus on the first three so that, I'm really not worried about the fourth part. So that's my take on retention. Something that's worked really well over the number of years that I've worked with different people. Had great retention, numbers across the companies that I've worked. The second is how do you build these career pathways, right? How do you build capability? Now, that comes with a very strong understanding of what the GCC wants to achieve, combined with what is the objective of the company, HQ, right? Now, once you understand what is the priority of the HQ, what are the pain points, what are customers really cribbing about, what do these products really lack? Then you can start seeing the alignment and you can really start building capability that is lacking, or you start building those gaps. Now, the other dimension to that is okay, what if I want to value add? What if I want to disrupt? That capability today does not exist. But that comes when you have an understanding of the industry that you are in.
Sure.
Is it really required for me to build this? So these two come together and they try to address the capability part. So from my perspective, personally, I work a lot with the stateside, people in terms of understanding what is it that's keeping you up at night, right? And how can we help, right? And that invariably is either a process problem, it's invariably a very simple product problem, or it's just a skill issue, right? So then you know where to focus rather than blindly running a program in the company saying, let's all learn AI, but then nobody uses it, right? So that's the second part. So be very intentional about where you want to focus. Leadership pipelines, I think, are very critical, especially when you want to scale the GCC, because everybody wants to do something different over a course of time. So unless you remove the bottlenecks across the organization at different levels, people can't grow. So you have to be focused on, one, how do people grow in the system?
Sure.
And what are the areas that you need to unlock so that you can build this pipeline? And to build the pipeline, a lot of frameworks are there. You have talent frameworks that help you understand who are the high potentials in your organization. But identification is one. Engaging them is a different one.
Sure.
Right? So you have to identify opportunities to engage them. I've seen a lot of companies do a 9-box and forget about it. Right? It never leaves that Excel. Right? But the true companies are ones that take it and then say, how do I create opportunities that will push people forward aligned with the company objectives? Then you see a congruence across all these three collectively adding back to value. Otherwise, these are independent exercises. These are independent nice to haves. That's why people complain about HR that, here comes the next framework. But if you're intentional about it, true success happens. And that's the job of the GCC leader. How do you connect the dots?
Interesting.
That's key.
Srini, you were awarded GCC Leader of the Year in Innovation and R&D. First of all, congratulations for this.
Thank you. I should say thanks to Leadership Federation for recognizing me on that.
And with that being said, with that kind of an honor with you on your side, can you cast a few examples of how innovation hubs in India are helping shape GCCs for the future, and a few outcomes that you would have witnessed in your journey that led to meaningful, impactful overall business outcomes for the organizations that are global in nature?
Yeah, sure. I think, like we discussed, with the focus of GCCs being value creation and innovation, it is inevitable that GCCs will be asked, to kind of disrupt.
Mhm.
GCC will be asked to question the status quo, and GCCs will be asked to improve what is already there. Um, the way that I've seen it happen over all these years is, innovation to me is all about incremental improvement, and you do it enough number of times, something different comes out, rather than trying to disrupt and trying to do something path breaking, which might be required in some instances. I feel innovation as a word sometimes gets overused, and they sometimes confuse it with continuous improvement. And when we look at continuous improvement being done enough number of times, there are a lot of examples. I think every single day that somebody comes to work, there is an opportunity to improve something. There is an opportunity to understand the customer's journey.
Right.
There is an opportunity to understand the process and bring your experience and see how it can be improved, and thereby add value. So incremental value, like I said, when done enough number of times, definitely is an innovation at the larger scale.
Sure.
So multiple, instances that I've seen in my past. And with respect to how this affects or how this improves top line value is the nature of innovation that you sometimes bring to the table. If it's product innovation, definitely it improves the top line.
Sure.
Because you're trying to build something new. It's a new feature. It's maybe something that's never been envisaged before. So definitely there is an impact to the top line. If it's process innovation, there is definitely improvement in efficiency because you're doing something quicker. So which means turnaround time is faster, time to market is better. Thereby it improves the top line. So there is a side impact, right? You're getting something out into the market quicker.
Sure.
So in one of my pasts, we have done that where we were responsible for a huge portfolio of products, and these were all on legacy technologies. So how do you really try to do something new, and try to bring in innovation? So the main thing we focused on was, how do you improve the processes that are around this?
Yeah.
So that you're saving a lot of manual effort. So try to bring in automation. So that significantly improved the NPS of the product because customers saw updates coming quicker. They were happy that they were reaching them much quicker, and quality was also quite high. So long story short, I think innovation is something that every individual has to have it in the DNA. It's not something that you can force on people. You can't say innovate, right? Rather, I think the key is to have an environment that encourages experimentation, and you really don't pull up people for failing, right? You allow them to experiment, you allow them to fail, and you allow them to learn from it, so that they are able to go back and reiterate that same process into their day-to-day work. I've seen a lot of examples of companies doing hackathons, but to me a lot of them are just a tick in the box saying that, okay, we just brought people together, had some pizzas and Coke, and let's get things done. But hackathons are a great way for us to innovate, and when done in the right way, I think they have significant value back to the organization. So definitely people have to look at what is it that they can do to make these innovation experiments meaningful, tie it back to the business value, tie it back to the priority that the company has, and I'm sure there is definite impact back to the top line.
So if I were to summarize, the way you believe in driving culture is by letting people experiment, not be fearful of failures, and strive for incremental improvements.
Yes, I mean, that's one way to look at it.
Sure.
I think the larger equation in this entire thing is, I mean, we all would have seen this word called psychological safety, right? At one point of time, Google came out with a research that said that the biggest predictor of an organization's success is is your environment psychologically safe?
Okay.
So when we say psychological safety, it is not having fear to fail.
Understood.
Right? And that is a culture that comes right from the top. And I think if you look at it in the context of GCCs, it's the leader, GCC leader, who sets that tone, saying that it's okay for us to fail, it's okay for us to take those measured risks.
Sure.
And not, stick by the book. So I firmly believe in that. I encourage people to kind of ask that question, why?
Okay.
And in fact, in some of my leadership meetings, I tell them to use the 5 why frameworks, right? If you ask the question why 5 times, you reach the root cause. And then you can start solving the problem, right? So it's all about encouraging people, giving them that space, giving them the freedom, and actually stepping out of the way, right? I mean, I like to tell people when I hire them, saying that, look, I know you're an adult. I don't think you need daycare, right? So I'm sure you can figure out if we give you something to solve. So we expect you to be reciprocative of that. So that's a very strong culture that, I try to bring in.
Let's talk about global alignment.
Mhm.
Because it's very important that for any GCC to be successful in India or anywhere else in the world, I think it's important that the alignment with the headquarters is fantastic in nature.
Absolutely, yes.
Now that would only happen if you instill trust, stability, dependency, to name a few jargons, right?
Right.
So how do you do that to make sure that the GCC that we set up here
Mhm.
is not just something that's going to help them tactically,
Right.
but with headquarter alignment and blessing from the global headquarters, it continues to strive here in India.
Right.
Any thoughts, any ideas, any suggestions?
Sure. Absolutely. I think there are multiple ways in which it can be done. Alignment is super critical, because if it's not there, if the priorities come from the wrong side of the organization, you end up being a cost center.
True.
Because you're really not seeing value beyond that. So the foremost thing is in my opinion, is who are you reporting into? Right? Are you reporting into the CFO? Are you reporting into the CPO? Are you reporting into the CEO? So that, I think, sets a lot of tone in terms of the direction of the GCC.
Okay.
Right? So that you're able to push, the right priorities down.
Mhm.
You're solving the right problems, and you're focusing on what is required. Because if that alignment is not there, and you're aligning with somebody who does not go beyond a tactical move, then you're going to suffer, right? And there's no point having a GCC thought process of, I want to be a value creator. You cannot be, right? You will be a cost arbitrage center.
Yeah.
So that's the first equation, which you get right. Now, once you get that part of it corrected, after that, it's in your plate to see how do you continually build, this equation.
Yeah.
And the topmost of that equation is trust and credibility, right? How do you make sure that you do what you say and you don't do things under the carpet, right? Because you want to prove something, right? Rather, it's always good for us to be transparent. It's always good for us to kind of have a shared understanding of what the GCC needs to achieve over the next 12 to 24 months. 5-year plans don't work because things change really rapidly, right? So have that trust, have that credibility, and make sure that you are keeping things visible, right? Like I said, don't do things under the carpet, but that means you make your work visible to people in the right way, and not visible in terms of using, filler words saying that we did this, we did that, but make it data based, right? So the more visibility you bring that is focused on outcomes, it increases the trust. It increases the trust, more work probably comes in, better work comes in. So it's like a cycle, right? So once you attack these top 3, then it's about how you give visibility to your people, right? Because I think in one of the earlier questions, we said that how the top management is sometimes, not visible to people, down in the trenches who do actual work. So how do you raise their visibility, right? So there are multiple forums you can do. You can make sure that they get a time with some of the top leaders of the organization. So there are some tactical things that you can do to bring visibility to their work. The fourth thing is in terms of alignment and thereby driving growth, is how do you build capability and how do you use that capability to drive value?
Okay.
Right. Many MNCs, when they come to India, they don't have a very clear structured career paths. They don't understand the Indian ecosystem. For them, promotions every 2 years is a alien concept, right? Because for them, it's more like somebody stays in the role, they are there for like 20, 30 years. So, but that's not going to work in India, right?
True.
So how do you build that cultural understanding, and thereby how do you help build capability within the organization is another way for us to build alignment.
Yeah.
And thereby drive better work and better understanding of what needs to happen. And the last thing I would say, which underpins all of this, is cultural understanding.
Yeah.
Right. Recently, I read an article that said that the biggest advantage that India has over any other region is we've been used to so many cultures that for us adaptability is a given.
Yeah.
Right. We adapt very quickly to a German culture, a British culture, a US culture. I think we should take advantage of that. Right. And having that cultural adaptability really goes a long way in building trust, building, all the other points that we talked about, and helping drive the GCC forward.
Are there any pitfalls that the GCC leaders can avoid in this journey?
I think the negative of each of these points is what you should not do.
Sure.
Right. So one is never ever project the GCC as a cost center. People will talk cost, but you have to learn to push that aside and talk value.
Got
right. So you have to have a very clear formulae of how do you want to express value, how do you want to show outcomes, and how do you want to show it in a measurable way that nobody can dispute.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to have the data collection constantly being done. Right. And that's a big job of the GCC leader to make sure that the data gets collected. Because what I've also seen is a lot of GCCs, when they set up, they follow a lot of processes, but data collection is there. They just rely on the tools to do it. But that always gives you a global picture. Right. So how do you cull out only the GCC part of it? Right. That's where you need to think about, okay, how do I showcase the work that's being done in a good way? Right. You're not trying to earn brownie points, but as much as saying that there is measurable value by us having created this team. So building that visibility, building that aspect is very important. Being transparent, not being transparent is a big step which will take it in the negative direction. And I think the last one is not focusing on capability building, because when people join you and the GCC builds a trust in you having to scale the center, if you're not focused on capability building, you're going to bleed attrition very quickly. And when that happens, the trust goes down.
True.
And that then has a negative effect, because some of the fears that many MNCs have is retention is a big issue in India. Every 2 years, I have to reskill people.
True.
Right. So if you have to break that myth, you have to focus on some of these other areas. And not doing that is a pitfall. And as a GCC leader, I would say never ever delegate some of these things. Never delegate the GCC's health to downstream functions. You have to be actively involved in, defining capability models, defining retention models, defining work structures, defining the culture. The GCC leader has to have a step in each one of them. And that's the only way to succeed.
Very interesting. I like the way of not delegating stuff. The critical things has to be
right.
held
There
up
are
to
some
your
things
chest.
that only the GCC leader should do. Or there are some things that only the GCC leader must do.
Very interesting.
Right. And it could change from company to company depending on your size, but having that list is important, and you never ever delegate that.
Let's look at your personal side.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much on your plate. Global strategy, transformation, innovation. How do you manage to keep yourself grounded?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Maybe it comes from experience.
Sure.
20 years ago, if you had asked me this question, I would have been stressed about it in terms of what to say. But I think the biggest learning for me is you can control only what you can control. Right? So there's no point in stressing about things that are beyond your control. So that's been my biggest learning. So I don't stress about, okay, should my GCC go here? Should my people come here? Is my retention number where it needs to be? So I don't stress about any of that. Right? I think I take it as it comes. You adapt. And you just try to work around, any hurdles that are there, right? And since you've hired the right people, you know that they all have your back, right? You've not hired somebody who's stressing you out,
yeah,
right? So it starts from that point, but then it's also a mindset not to get stressed out. Each day you open LinkedIn, there are articles that always compare you with other GCCs, right? And
Yeah.
you end your day thinking, am I good enough in my GCC, right? So stop that thought, right? Your GCC has a purpose, your GCC has a journey, and you are in that driver's seat, right? All the other things that you're reading are just data points. You can pick and choose what you want, but never ever get influenced by them, because comparison is the worst thing that can happen in this industry, especially when you see 2 3 GCCs every week.
So keep
Right.
your path simple.
Keep your path simple.
Stay focused, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like how they say in the Three Idiots movie, right? Grades create divide.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same thing, right? Too many GCC parameters will create divide about, whether you're good or bad. So you're good. Go down that journey and be clear on what you want. So I kind of inculcated that habit over the course of all these years, and try to stick to it, right? And if something needs to be changed, yeah, we'll go with the flow.
Fantastic. And let us assume for a moment that if you are not supposed to be leading this life of being a GCC leader, what path would
I have taken? Yeah. I mean, one other thing that I forgot to mention in the previous thing on how I stay grounded is I'm a very outdoor person. So I love to go on treks. I love to go on hikes. As a family, we love to trek. We love to travel a lot to multiple destinations. So I think that brings in a different mindset of calmness. I think when you visit different countries and you see the cultures, you have a lot of appreciation of what you have.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that grounds you a lot. Right. Rather than having that feeling that something is missing, you feel a lot more grounded. So I think we want to continue doing that. My wife is a certified yoga teacher as well. And she teaches me a lot to stay calm in terms of the different, yoga asanas and poses that she wants me to do. So she's a big believer that wellness is, something that's grossly ignored. Right. So I think the more people are focused on that, it really helps. Now, to your question of what would I have done if not the GCC route, I think around, maybe late early 90s, I learned the violin for like 15 years. Went through the Carnatic route, had a very solid guru who walked me through the rigor of violin. And I've done a lot of performances, really enjoyed doing it. But at year one of college, I had to take take a direction, saying that do I want to go down? And that was the year of the computers, right? Early,
correct,
late 90s. I was really excited about that as well. So I had to make a choice, and I think for better or worse, I took the IT route, and here I am, 30 years later. But had that not happened, I think I would have built a career in music.
Interesting.
I would have really gone down the Carnatic music route, on the violin route, and I would have really enjoyed that.
Do you still find time to play violin?
I would love to. I do. I still have my violin that I used almost 30-35 years ago.
Wow.
I think if I play it long enough, I'll get the touch back, but unfortunately, I don't. But both my boys play the drums, so there is still music in the house. So that continues to keep me, at least linked to that, occasion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Srinivas, you are a true asset not just for the industry. I believe you are a true asset for our nation. Somebody who is capable of building innovation hubs is going to bring in more and more trust, more and more opportunities to our country. In your journey, you're not only elevating India's promise to the world in terms of we're no longer looked as expense centers or cost arbitrage. This is where the innovation happens for the future. And I think you making a significant contribution in that journey by leading from the front. So thank you so much on behalf of the industry. Thank you so much on behalf of our country. And may you continue to add a lot of value. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this conversation comes to an end. However, an interesting individual that we got on table today, he has been there for 25 years. He has transformed and played a key role in transforming India to be looked upon, not just as a cost center, but as an innovation center. I'm talking about Srinivas once again. And he still finds time to trail. He goes traveling. He plays music. So overall, I think he also gives us a lesson for life, not just limiting ourselves to his work life, but I think the inspiration that we can take from him as a human being collectively is quite inspiring.
Yeah.
So, Srini, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Sunny.
coming to the show. It
Thank
was wonderful hosting you today.
Thank you so much. It was great having this chat. I think getting out 30 years of experience in a podcast itself is a great experience, trying to summarize what has happened. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and look forward to more such conversations.
And I'm sure, like some of our friends in the GCC world say, that I hope you also fastened your seat belts, because India is going to be accelerating over the next 5 years.
Absolutely. And I think we'll be traveling at warp speed.
Absolutely.
So we have to be ready for it.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you. Likewise.
So friends, that was Srinivas Sampath. What an excellent GCC leader. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel and continue to look out for more such insightful conversations. Until then, this is me signing off. Thank you.